Hi, welcome to Burt's Basics. My name is Peter Burt. I teach at Box Elder High School, and today we're still going with the nervous system. Today we're doing ventricles and meninges, which is concepts 5 and 6. So this right here is what you are needed to know. Now there's a couple weird words on here, but hopefully we'll explain everything, and this won't be too bad. So let's go ahead and start with number 6. We're going to talk about meninges, okay? So now if you guys look at the word meninges, it's kind of a weird word. We don't use this word very often. Meninge is a med-term word for membranes. So these are membranes that cover the central nervous system, which is the brain and the spine. Now, when I get done with this, I'm going to tell you, you already knew all of these. You just didn't know you knew them, okay? There's only one thing you got to do when you remember all the meninge cuttings. You need to think of this, lady. You need to think of a mean mama, okay? So here are the Meninges layers, and if you notice, they all end in the word mater. Okay, now mater is a word you guys don't use very often unless I change it for you, like maternal, maternity leave, maternal instincts. Mater is mother. There are 3 coatings of your meninges, and they're all something mother, something mother, something mother. So look at this mama right here. We're going to start with the outside one. So when we look at meninges, we're going to start with the dura mater. The dura mater is by far the thickest one. It's the strongest one. It's hard to see through. It has blood vessels in it. And dura, in med term in Spanish, is tough. So dura mater literally stands for tough mama. Okay, so that's your dura mater. It's your tough mother. So let's get that real picture up here again. It's kind of tough. You can see it's hard to cut through. If you could peel back the dura mater, then you get to the next layer, which I'm hoping you guys recognize this word from midterm right here. Do you see how there's all these little legs coming down? They look like a bunch of little spiders. And so the second layer we call the arachnoid mater. Arachnoid Mater being the spider mama, or just the arachnoid space, okay? So it has all these little legs, and we'll talk about why those legs are so important in just a second. So we have the dura mater, tough, tough, tough mother, arachnoid mater, spider mother, and then we get to the hardest one to actually see, and this is a soft coating that's right on the brain itself, and that is the pia mater, where pia stands for soft or delicate. So let's go through our mothers really quick. You got tough mother, dura mater, okay? Then you have arachnoid mater, okay, which is your spider mama, and then you have your pia mater, which is your soft or delicate mother. And together, all of these guys make up your meninges. So if any of these guys get inflamed, any of them, dura, arachnoid, or pia, we call that meningitis, which I'm sure you've heard before. We're going to talk about the difference between viral meningitis and bacterial meningitis in the diseases of this section. Okay, so here's a dissection. You can see that this is definitely the dura. You can see that this person's got a good hold of it. You can see that it's not transparent. You're pulling on it. It's kind of tough. Okay, that's your dura mater. And then this would be your arachnoid and your pia. And you can see the curves of the brain, which we'll call gyrus and sulcus when we get there. Okay, now let's go ahead and talk about ventricles. If you actually look in the brain, any picture of the brain, there's going to be these deep holes or these grooves. Okay, those grooves are called ventricles, which are nothing more than a space. Now, don't get this confused with the ventricles in the heart. Remember how we have atriums and ventricles? Well, these are ventricles in the brain, and there are 4 of them. And you can actually see their names right here. You have 2 lateral ventricles, lateral and lateral. Remember, lateral means boop, to the side. Okay, so we got laterals, and then we got third ventricle and fourth ventricle, and those are their scientific names: lateral, third, and fourth. And the reason why we care about these ventricles is because what's in them. Okay, they are these big empty spaces that have these guys in them. So here's my lateral, third, and fourth. So they're these big spaces, and there's piping in between them. So now let's zoom in on these ventricles even more. I'm zooming in on these 2 lateral ventricles right here. Okay, let's see what's going on in those lateral ventricles. That's when we get this guy, CP. CP does not stand for cerebral palsy. CP stands for a choroid plexus. Now, if we go back to the beginning of your sheet, do you remember how you had choroid plexus right here? See how it's right underneath the ventricles? The reason why the choroid plexus is so important is because in the choroid plexus, you have ependymal or epidymal cells. And these ependymal cells make cerebral spinal fluid. And they start by making it in the ventricles, then they drain it to the third, then using the piping they get to the fourth, and then it circulates everywhere. Remember, CSF, cerebral is your brain, spine is your spine, and it's a fluid that circulates both. That's why these ventricles are so important. That's where cerebral spinal fluid is made. It's a derivative of plasma in the blood, but it's made here, and then it circulates. Now, if we look very closely, if you follow my arrow, can you see how the cerebral spinal fluid goes around the brain? Well, that's interesting because I swear that's where the meninges were. So now can we back up for a second? Do you remember how I said we're going to talk about these spider legs? Now look at the screen if we can. When we talk about your spider legs, that's what meninges are. They're like a little spider. But if you notice, I can still see you. I see you. I see you. I see you. Okay, that's what these legs are for. So what ends up happening is underneath the arachnoid, they call this the subarachnoid space. Underneath it, that's where the cerebral spinal fluid floats like a river. It goes throughout the entire brain and throughout the entire spine. So you can see right here, this is your subarachnoid space, this is your spiders, that's where all the fluid will circulate. So your brain literally swims all day, and that's what this is trying to show you. Can you see the blue? It's swimming all day, and then eventually it drains back into the bloodstream, and you just have a continuous flow of the cerebral spinal fluid are coming from your ventricles, choroid plexus, plexi, and from the ependymal cells that are making cerebral spinal fluid. Now I told you at the beginning of the video, I promise you, you already knew these, and you do. Now does this make infinitely more sense? Sorry if you're afraid of needles. I know some of you don't like needles. They are giving this girl a shot. She's in labor to try to numb her, basically her hips down so she won't feel pain, but she still keeps her abdominal muscles. And this is called an epidural, or on top of the dura mater, which is the meninge covering on your spine. Now we do have another procedure called a subdural. That's called a spinal tap, where I poke through the dura to get out cerebral spinal fluid to see if you actually have meningitis. Congratulations, you have finished. So do me a favor, here's your quiz. Cut out a section of the brain. Love this section of the brain. 1, 2, 3, 4 is from another video, so do the best you can of labeling these. The answers are coming. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the flip side.